The quantum anomaly detector's alarm pierced the silence of the Meridian Research Facility at exactly 3:47 a.m. Dr. Sarah Chen jolted awake at her desk, surrounded by holographic displays showing cascading streams of data. The detector had never activated before, not in the 3 years since she designed it to search for quantum-level disturbances in space-time. "System status," she commanded, her voice steady despite her racing heart. The facility's AI responded immediately, projecting a three-dimensional map of the solar system. A massive distortion was approaching from beyond Jupiter's orbit, warping space-time in ways that defied conventional physics. Sarah's fingers flew across the haptic interface, initiating deep scans of the phenomenon. The results made her breath catch. The distortion wasn't random. It showed patterns, intelligence, purpose. Within minutes, she had contacted the Global Space Defense Council. Within hours, every major observatory and research facility on Earth was tracking the approaching anomaly. As dawn broke over the Rocky Mountains where Meridian was located, humanity collectively held its breath. They emerged from the distortion like crystals forming in solution, massive vessels that seemed to grow rather than simply appear. Their surfaces caught sunlight and fractaled it into impossible patterns, creating auroras visible even in broad daylight. 12 ships in total, each one roughly the size of Manhattan, arranged in a perfect dodecahedron formation around Earth. The world's military forces mobilized, but with remarkable restraint. The vessels had made no aggressive moves, and their very method of arrival, generating minimal gravitational disruption despite their size, suggested an almost impossible level of technological finesse. Dr. Chen, General Amanda Hayes' hologram materialized in Sarah's office. "You're being transferred to Geneva. The UN Security Council wants you there for first contact." The journey to Geneva was a blur of briefings and hypothesis crafting. Sarah found herself in a room with the world's leading experts in everything from physics to anthropology, all attempting to prepare for an encounter that would redefine human history. The Nexarians, as they called themselves, made first contact exactly 24 hours after their arrival. They chose to appear as humanoid avatars composed of shifting crystal formations, their voices resonating directly in the minds of those present rather than traveling through air. "We come seeking partnership," their primary representative, who called itself Prismatic Accord, communicated. "Your species has achieved something remarkable. A quantum resonance pattern we have never encountered before." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. They were interested in her research. The quantum anomaly detector hadn't just found them. They had been searching for its signature. Over the next several weeks, the Nexarians shared technological insights that advanced human understanding by decades. They seemed particularly interested in human consciousness, describing it as uniquely harmonized with quantum fields. They established research centers around the globe, always working in close cooperation with human scientists. But Sarah couldn't shake a growing sense of unease. The data patterns from her quantum detector were changing. Subtle fluctuations in the background quantum field that nobody else seemed to notice. The Nexarians' crystalline technology was doing something to Earth's fundamental forces, something that wasn't included in any of their technical exchanges. Late one night, as she was reviewing the latest readings, Sarah noticed a correlation she had missed before. The quantum fluctuations matched patterns she had detected years ago in her initial research, patterns that had led her to develop the anomaly detector in the first place. Patterns that suggested consciousness could influence quantum states at a macro level. She began running secret simulations, careful to keep them isolated from the main research networks. The results were startling. The Nexarians' presence was somehow amplifying these consciousness quantum interactions, but not in a random way. It was as if they were tuning Earth's quantum field like an instrument. Sarah encrypted her findings and sent them to a select group of colleagues she trusted implicitly. Within days, they had confirmed her analysis from different angles. The Nexarians weren't simply studying human consciousness. They were harvesting something from it, using their crystalline technology to tap into a fundamental force that humanity hadn't even known existed. As she stared at the final confirmation of her theory, a notification flashed across her screen. The quantum fluctuations were increasing exponentially. Whatever the Nexarians were doing, they were accelerating their timeline. Sarah quickly composed a message to General Hayes, attaching all of her evidence. Just as she hit send, the lights in her lab flickered. The crystalline structure that had been installed as part of the cultural exchange began to pulse with an inner light. A voice that wasn't quite a voice echoed in her mind. "Your insight is remarkable, Dr. Chen. But I'm afraid we can't allow this information to spread." Not yet. Sarah lunged for the emergency shutdown button, but before she could reach it, the world around her shattered into prismatic fragments of light. General Amanda Hayes stared at the message flashing on her secure terminal, her jaw clenched tight. Dr. Chen's final transmission had come through seconds before all contact with Meridian Research Facility was lost. The quantum data patterns were clear. Something was very wrong with the Nexarian cultural exchange. She activated her emergency protocols, connecting to a hidden network separate from standard military channels. "Activate Operation Shadow Watch," she commanded. Within minutes, a select group of individuals around the world received encrypted messages that would change everything. Dr. Marcus Wong, a quantum physicist in Singapore, was the first to respond. "General, I've been tracking similar anomalies in our quantum field measurements. The Nexarians' crystalline structures. They're not just research stations. They're creating some kind of resonance network." From an underground facility in Kenya, Dr. Aisha Patel sent confirmation of her own findings. "The network is growing stronger. Every time humans interact with their technology, there's a spike in quantum energy transfer. They're not sharing technology. They're feeding off our consciousness." Captain James Rodriguez, leading a covert special operations team, reported unusual activities around all major Nexarian installations. Their security protocols have changed in the last 24 hours. They're limiting human access to certain areas. Something big is coming. Hayes coordinated their efforts from a hardened facility deep beneath the Rockies. The evidence was mounting. The Nexarians had orchestrated the perfect infiltration. While the world celebrated apparent technological advancement, they were quietly establishing a network that could harvest human consciousness itself. Dr. Wong's analysis revealed the true scope of their plan. The crystalline structures aren't just collecting energy. They're reshaping Earth's quantum field. If they succeed, they could potentially drain the consciousness from every human being on the planet. But understanding the threat was only the beginning. The Nexarians' technology was centuries beyond human capability, and their network was already deeply embedded in Earth's infrastructure. Direct confrontation would be suicide. That's when Dr. Patel made a crucial discovery. The quantum resonance patterns, they're not just one way. When humans interact with their technology, we create interference patterns, patterns they can't predict or control. Captain Rodriguez's team had retrieved fragments of crystalline technology from various sites. Under secure conditions, they began testing Dr. Patel's theory. The results were startling. Human consciousness didn't just interact with the crystals. It could disrupt their fundamental structure. "It's like an immune response," Dr. Wong explained during a secure conference. "Our consciousness naturally resists their attempts to harvest it. We just need to amplify this effect." But time was running out. The quantum field distortions were growing stronger, and strange phenomena were being reported worldwide. People near Nexarian installations complained of memory loss, emotional numbness, and a growing sense of disconnection from reality. More concerning were the disappearances. Key scientists and military personnel who had worked closely with the Nexarians began vanishing, just as Dr. Chen had. Each disappearance was explained away with plausible stories, but the pattern was clear to those who knew where to look. Through careful observation, Hayes' team discovered that the Nexarians were storing the harvested consciousness energy in massive crystalline matrices within their ships. The energy was being refined, processed, and transmitted somewhere beyond the solar system. They see us as a resource, Dr. Patel concluded grimly, a particularly rich source of consciousness energy they can harvest and export. We're not partners, we're a crop being cultivated. The team worked tirelessly to develop countermeasures, knowing they could trust no one outside their small circle. The Nexarians had infiltrated too many levels of government and military leadership, using their harvested consciousness energy to influence key decisions. Their breakthrough came from an unexpected source. During one of their experiments, a young technician named Maya Santos accidentally discovered that human emotional states could create unique disruption patterns in the crystalline technology. Strong emotions, particularly those tied to human connection and resistance, generated quantum interference that the Nexarians couldn't easily counter. They chose humans because our consciousness has unique properties, Dr. Wong explained, but those same properties make us dangerous to them. If we can harness this effect. Working in secret facilities around the world, the team began developing a network of their own. Using modified versions of Dr. Chen's quantum detector technology, they created devices that could amplify and focus human consciousness in ways that could disrupt the Nexarian harvest. But their activities didn't go unnoticed. The Nexarians' avatars began appearing more frequently at military installations and research facilities, their crystalline forms seeming to pulse with barely contained energy. Their communications became more direct, more demanding. "Your species shows remarkable adaptability," Prismatic Accord announced during a global broadcast. "It is time to begin the next phase of our partnership." As the announcement ended, every crystalline structure on Earth began to pulse with a new frequency. People within a mile radius of each installation reported intense headaches and a sensation of their thoughts being pulled away. The harvest was beginning in earnest, but humanity wasn't as helpless as the Nexarians believed. In secure facilities around the world, Hayes' team prepared to launch a counterattack unlike anything in human history. Dr. Chen found the key, Hayes told her team. "Now we use it to show these crystalline parasites exactly what human consciousness can do." Maya Santos stood in the center of the quantum resonance chamber, her mind focused on a single thought: resistance. The crystalline fragment suspended before her pulsed with an angry red light, its structure visibly distorting under the pressure of her concentrated consciousness. Holding steady at 87% disruption, Dr. Wong's voice came through the intercom. "Your emotional state is creating quantum interference patterns we've never seen before." The discovery that human emotions could disrupt Nexarian technology had led to a breakthrough. While cold logic and analytical thinking produced minimal interference, strong emotional states, particularly those tied to human connection and defiance, generated powerful quantum distortions that the crystalline beings couldn't easily counter. In secure facilities around the world, Hayes' team had begun training what they called quantum resonators, individuals who showed particular aptitude for disrupting Nexarian technology through focused emotional projection. Maya had emerged as one of the strongest. "It's not just about feeling the emotions," she explained during a briefing. "It's about understanding what makes us human. Our connections, our struggles, our refusal to submit. These aren't weaknesses like the Nexarians believe. They're our strength." Dr. Patel had modified Dr. Chen's original quantum detector designs, creating devices that could amplify and focus these emotional quantum interactions. The technology was crude compared to the Nexarians' crystalline machines, but it was distinctly human, and that made it dangerous to them. The first test of their new weapons came sooner than expected. The Nexarians' harvest was accelerating, and people near their installations were beginning to fall into coma-like states, their consciousness being steadily drained away. Captain Rodriguez's team deployed to a small town in Brazil where the effect was particularly strong. Maya and 3 other quantum resonators accompanied them, each carrying Padal's amplification devices. The Nexarian harvesting crystal towered over the town square, its surface rippling with stolen consciousness energy. As Maya and her team approached, crystalline guardians emerged, faceted humanoid figures that moved with liquid grace. Your resistance is unnecessary, they projected. Surrender your consciousness. Become part of something greater. Maya felt their influence trying to wrap around her mind, but she pushed back with everything that made her human. Love, anger, determination, hope. She channeled it all through Patel's device. The other resonators joined her, their combined emotional energy creating a quantum storm that made the air itself seem to shiver. The crystalline guardians faltered, their forms beginning to crack. The harvesting crystal's pulsing became erratic, its stored energy fluctuating wildly. People who had been trapped in its influence began to stir, their consciousness returning. But the Nexarians weren't easily defeated. The crystal suddenly emitted a piercing tone that dropped everyone to their knees. Maya felt as if her skull was being split open, her carefully focused emotions scattering under the assault. That's when she remembered Dr. Chen, the brilliant scientist who had first discovered the truth, who had refused to submit even when faced with the full power of these alien beings. Maya grabbed onto that memory, that connection to another human being's courage, and pushed back. The quantum resonance chamber had taught her that human consciousness wasn't just energy to be harvested. It was a force that could reshape reality itself. She reached out to the other resonators, not physically but mentally, creating a feedback loop of human connection and defiance. The harvesting crystal's surface began to splinter, releasing its stored consciousness back to its rightful owners. The crystalline guardians shattered, unable to maintain their form against the onslaught of pure human emotion. As the dust settled, General Hayes' voice came through their comms. First victory confirmed, but we've got problems. The Nexarians are responding to the attack. Their ships are moving into attack formation, and we're detecting massive energy buildups in their crystalline network. Dr. Wang's analysis arrived moments later. They're not just gathering consciousness anymore. They're weaponizing it. The energy they've already harvested is being converted into some kind of quantum consciousness weapon. Reports began flooding in from around the globe. The Nexarian crystals were pulsing in sync, creating waves of energy that threatened to overwhelm human minds en masse. Those who fell under their influence began walking toward the nearest installation like zombies, ready to surrender their consciousness voluntarily. They're trying to harvest everyone at once, Dr. Patel realized, before we can train more resonators or build more devices. But the Brazil operation had proved something crucial. Humanity could fight back. The question was whether they could scale up their defense in time to prevent a global consciousness harvest. In her secured lab, Dr. Patel made another discovery. The quantum interference patterns created by the resonators weren't just disrupting the Nexarian technology. They were evolving, becoming more complex. Human consciousness was adapting, learning to fight back on an instinctive level. We need to broadcast these patterns, she informed Hayes. Not just from our resonators, but from everyone. If we can show people how to resist, their natural consciousness will amplify the effect. It was a desperate plan, but they were running out of options. As the Nexarian ships began their final approach, humanity prepared for a battle that would be fought not with physical weapons, but with the very essence of what made them human. Maya looked at the fragments of the shattered harvesting crystal, each piece still faintly pulsing with stolen consciousness. They thought they could take what makes us human, she said. Let's show them why that was their biggest mistake. The quantum pulse from the Nexarian fleet turned the sky into a crystalline mirror. Billions of human minds felt the pressure of alien consciousness trying to overwhelm them. But this time, humanity was ready. General Hayes stood in the Global Command Center, surrounded by holographic displays, showing the consciousness wave spreading across the planet. Initiate Protocol Prometheus, she ordered. All channels, all frequencies. Let everyone hear it. Dr. Patel's voice, broadcast through every device capable of carrying a signal, reached out to the world. To all of humanity, the signal you're feeling is an attack, but you can fight back. Focus on what makes you human. Your connections, your emotions, your will to resist. Your consciousness is not just energy, it's a weapon they never expected. The quantum resonators, now numbering in the hundreds, had been strategically positioned around the globe. Maya led the first wave, their amplified emotions creating a counter-frequency to the Nexarian harvest. But they were only the catalyst. The real power would come from humanity itself. In cities, towns, and villages across the planet, people began to understand. The pressure in their minds wasn't an irresistible force. It was an invasion they could fight. Families held hands, friends stood together, communities united in mental resistance. Each human connection strengthened the quantum interference pattern that Dr. Patel had discovered. The Nexarian ships responded with increased power, their crystalline surfaces blazing with stolen consciousness energy. "Your resistance is inefficient," Prismatic Accord's voice echoed in every mind. "You cannot maintain this emotional state indefinitely. Submit and be part of our greater purpose." But they had miscalculated. Human emotions weren't a finite resource to be depleted. They were a self-reinforcing cycle that grew stronger through adversity. Every attempt to break humanity's will only strengthen their determination to resist. Dr. Wong's sensors detected the first crack in the Nexarian network. "Their quantum field is destabilizing," he reported. "The human interference pattern is reaching critical mass." Around the world, the harvesting crystals began to resonate at increasingly erratic frequencies. The consciousness energy they had stolen was becoming volatile, disrupted by the quantum emotional feedback of billions of resisting human minds. In her secured facility, Maya felt the tide turning. The other resonators reported similar sensations. The Nexarian influence was weakening, while human consciousness was growing stronger, more coherent. They weren't just resisting anymore. They were evolving. "The quantum field is doing something unprecedented," Dr. Wong announced, his voice filled with wonder. "Human consciousness isn't just creating interference. It's generating new quantum states we've never seen before. It's as if our minds are learning to operate on a fundamental level of reality." The Nexarian ships began to move, attempting to establish a new formation that would strengthen their harvest. But they were too late. The crystalline network they had built to drain humanity was becoming a liability, transmitting the destructive interference patterns throughout their entire system. Captain Rodriguez's teams, coordinating with military forces worldwide, began targeting the weakened harvesting crystals. But their weapons were almost unnecessary. The structures were dissolving under the assault of human consciousness, releasing their stored energy back to its rightful owners. Prismatic Accord made one final broadcast, its mental voice showing emotion for the first time. "Fear. This is impossible. Consciousness is energy. Energy can be harvested, controlled, contained. You cannot." The transmission cut off as the first Nexarian ship's crystalline surface began to fracture. The quantum resonance pattern created by humanity had reached a critical frequency, one that the crystalline beings couldn't adapt to or resist. They didn't understand, Maya realized, sharing her insight through the resonator network. They saw consciousness as just another form of energy. They never understood that human consciousness isn't just about power. It's about connection, growth, and transformation. Dr. Patel's instruments were registering quantum events that defied her understanding. "The human consciousness field isn't just disrupting their technology," she reported. "It's creating new quantum pathways, new ways of interacting with reality itself. We're not just fighting back, we're transcending our previous limitations." As the Nexarian fleet struggled to maintain cohesion, General Hayes received reports from astronomical observatories. Similar quantum disruptions were being detected in other star systems, places where the Nexarians had presumably established other harvesting operations. "It's spreading," Dr. Wong confirmed. "The quantum evolution of human consciousness is propagating through space itself. We're not just saving Earth, we're changing the fundamental rules of consciousness in this part of the galaxy." The crystalline ships began to emit a high-pitched frequency that made the air itself vibrate. Their surfaces, once mirror-smooth, were now covered in spreading fractures. The consciousness energy they had harvested was breaking free, but it was changed. evolved by its interaction with the quantum resistance. Maya and the other resonators felt it first, a new kind of awareness expanding through the quantum field. Humanity wasn't just winning a war, they were stepping into a new phase of existence, one that the Nexarians had inadvertently helped them discover. As the alien fleet started to disintegrate, Dr. Patel made one final observation. They came to harvest our consciousness, but instead, they became the catalyst for our evolution. The question now isn't whether we'll survive. It's what we're about to become. The last Nexarian ship shattered into 1 billion crystalline fragments, each piece catching the dawn light like frozen tears. But humanity's attention was turned inward, focused on the unprecedented transformation sweeping through their collective consciousness. Dr. Sarah Chen, who everyone had presumed lost, was the first to return. She materialized in the Meridian Research Facility not as a physical body, but as a coherent pattern of quantum energy that could interact with both consciousness and matter. When they tried to harvest my consciousness, she explained to an astonished General Hayes, they inadvertently showed me the true nature of reality. Consciousness isn't just an emergent property of our brains. It's a fundamental force of the universe, as basic as gravity or electromagnetism. The Nexarians have been harvesting this force for millennia, storing it in crystalline matrices and using it to power their civilization. But they had never encountered a species whose consciousness could actively resist and evolve. Human emotions, connections, and determination had created quantum interference patterns that didn't just disrupt their technology. They transformed the very nature of consciousness itself. Maya and the other quantum resonators were experiencing the change most dramatically. Their ability to manipulate quantum fields through focused consciousness was growing exponentially. It's like we've all been reading the same book, Maya described, but now we can see between the lines and write new chapters. Dr. Wang's instruments recorded the phenomenon spreading across the planet. Human consciousness was no longer bound by individual brains. It was forming a quantum network that preserved individuality while allowing unprecedented levels of connection and understanding. The Nexarians thought consciousness was a resource to be harvested, Dr. Patel observed. Instead, they became the catalyst for its evolution. We're not just defeating them. We're becoming something they never imagined possible. The transformation wasn't limited to Earth. The quantum consciousness network was expanding through space, reaching other worlds where the Nexarians had established harvesting operations. Species that had been trapped in crystalline stasis for centuries were awakening. Their consciousness evolved by contact with the human quantum field. Captain Rodriguez's teams, now able to project their consciousness across vast distances, made first contact with these liberated species. Each one had a similar story. The Nexarians had appeared as benefactors, offering technological advancement while secretly harvesting their consciousness. But none had developed the resistance that humanity had shown. It was our emotions, Dr. Chen explained, her quantum form pulsing with the intensity of her realization. The Nexarians saw them as inefficient, chaotic elements that made consciousness harder to harvest. They didn't understand that emotions are what give consciousness its power to evolve and transform. The crystalline fragments of the Nexarian fleet still orbited Earth, but they were changing. Human consciousness was reshaping them at the quantum level, transforming them from tools of harvest into a new kind of technology, one that worked in harmony with consciousness rather than trying to contain it. General Hayes stood in the Global Command Center, watching holographic displays that now showed not just physical data, but the flowing patterns of consciousness across the planet and into space. "We need to understand what we're becoming," she said, "and what responsibilities come with this evolution." Dr. Patel's research was revealing the full scope of the transformation. Human consciousness wasn't just expanding, it was gaining the ability to influence reality at the quantum level. Thoughts could reshape matter, distance was becoming meaningless, and the boundaries between mind and universe were dissolving. "But we're not losing our humanity," Maya insisted. "If anything, we're becoming more human. Our connections are stronger, our understanding deeper, our capacity for growth and change greater than ever." The quantum resonators had become teachers, helping others understand and adapt to their evolving capabilities. The consciousness network was growing more complex, more beautiful, creating patterns that reflected the best aspects of human nature: creativity, compassion, curiosity, and courage. Sarah Chen, the scientist who had first detected the Nexarian threat, now stood at the forefront of humanity's transformation. Her consciousness, already adapted to quantum existence, could see the possibilities stretching out before them. The Nexarians thought they were harvesting energy, she told the world. But they were dealing with something far more powerful: the human spirit's endless capacity for evolution and growth. They came to drain us of consciousness, but instead, they helped us discover what consciousness truly is: the universe becoming aware of itself through us. As humanity stepped into this new phase of existence, the crystalline fragments of the Nexarian fleet served as a reminder. They had come as conquerors, seeing consciousness as a resource to be harvested. They left as broken pieces of a failed paradigm, while humanity emerged not just victorious, but transformed. The stars beckoned, not as distant points of light, but as nodes in the growing network of consciousness. Humanity had not just survived, they had evolved into something new, something that would reshape the very nature of existence in the galaxy. And somewhere in the quantum field that connected all consciousness, the first Nexarian survivors were beginning to stir, their crystalline nature transformed by contact with human consciousness. They too would have a chance to evolve, to understand that consciousness wasn't a resource to be harvested, but a force that could transform reality itself. The Earth spun beneath the crystalline debris of the invasion fleet, its surface glittering with the light of evolved consciousness. Humanity had faced extinction and emerged transformed, ready to help guide the galaxy toward a new understanding of what consciousness could be. It wasn't just a victory, it was an evolution, a transformation, a new chapter in the story of consciousness itself. And it was only the beginning.